Traden en ondernemen hebben mij één ding geleerd, meer dan wat dan ook: druk. De druk wanneer geld op het spel staat en ook de druk om verantwoordelijkheid te nemen wanneer het fout gaat. Maar traden is niet de enige plek waar die druk bestaat. Ondernemers voelen het, atleten voelen het. Iedereen die op een hoog niveau presteert, komt vroeg of laat onder druk te staan. Daarom start ik deze podcast Under Pressure. In deze gesprekken praat ik met mensen die op hun eigen manier hebben geleerd hoe ze moeten presteren wanneer het er echt toe doet. Niet alleen over succes, maar ook over twijfel, angst en de mentale stress die daarbij hoort. En mijn eerste gast is iemand die dat van binnen en van buiten begrijpt. Chris Henry, een neuroscience performance coach die al meer dan 20 jaar werkt met topatleten om hun beter te doen presteren onder druk. Vandaag gaan we praten over wat er werkelijk gebeurt in jouw brein wanneer alles op het spel staat. Mijn naam is Rousseau van Hoorn en dit is Under Pressure. Chris, welcome to Under Pressure.
It's a pleasure to be here, Rousseau.
Welcome. Great to have you on. So, Chris, is this introduction about right? What do you think?
Absolutely. And what's interesting with this, Rousseau, is it applies to everybody.
Yeah.
Because everybody, in whatever state of life they're in, or whatever they're endeavoring to achieve, or whether it's family or business or sport, it applies to all of us.
Okay, yeah, it's very interesting today because I was thinking about under pressure moments, right? And how do we deal with them? I know you have a background in neuroscience and all that stuff, so how it works theoretically, but also how do you make it better? How do you get into those moments and make sure you are trained, So I have one question to start off with you today.
Sure.
Before we go into more of the detail. What was your most under pressure moment?
It's a great question. And it's something that happened to me in Holland, Sint-Hertogenbosch, back in the late 80s. I was playing as a professional snooker player back then.
Okay.
Well, in fact, just before I turned professional, I was an amateur. But I was playing in the Dutch Open Championship. And I managed to get to the final. And what was interesting was in the quarterfinal and the semi-final, they were not televised. So it was more of a normal scenario for me that I was used to. But when I got to the final, I realised it was going to be televised live on Dutch Nederlands 2, Veronica. And so now we've got cameras in the room, and looking through those cameras are a few million people.
Let's talk about pressure.
Right. So all of a sudden now, there's a lot of people watching what I'm doing. And now I'm expected to put these little balls in these little holes very effectively. And I was totally out of my comfort zone. I felt very, very nervous. And so this word pressure is very interesting because it's not really pressure, and we'll talk about that in a second.
Okay.
But basically, something happened during that match where I couldn't perform. I did something a little bit out of the ordinary to change the way my brain was operating, not realizing what I was doing back then.
Okay.
It helped, and then I actually was able to perform because I'd changed my state. And so that was a fascinating experience. And that led me to start to study the brain and why it was doing what it was doing in those situations, causing me to feel literally frightened to death, like literally really afraid. And I'm just having a game of snooker. It's crazy to think that can happen in such a situation.
Crazy.
So that was my sort of real pressure moment.
Okay, that's interesting. And you probably felt the heart racing, right? And the sweat, or I don't know how bad it was, but it was a big pressure moment. That's interesting. And that moment led you to basically study how the brain works or why it happened exactly.
Yeah, trying to understand why it happened and what can we do about it when it happens. And then even more interestingly, how could we potentially prevent it from happening in the first place? And I think that's the route that I took to start to understand some of the methods and tools that we can use to help the brain to deal with things in a slightly different way. And actually, today we're talking about pressure and being under pressure. So let me just give you a very quick description of what I believe pressure is. Obviously, we do have pressure. There's pressure in a tire in your car.
Yep.
There's pressure in a cabin in an aeroplane.
True.
That's pressure. But in a sporting environment or a life environment, it's not really pressure. And so my description of it is this. Pressure is an emotional state, so that's how you're feeling,
Okay.
being created by the meaning that your subconscious brain is giving to this current situation. So, in other words, there's a part of your brain called the amygdala that's basically trying to keep you safe and alive. And if it starts to recognize things that it doesn't actually recognize, it starts to trigger all of these things in your body. Adrenaline, epinephrine, noradrenaline, cortisol, all these kinds of chemicals start to fire.
Okay.
And you feel very, very uncomfortable. So it's not really pressure. It's an emotional state being experienced by the individual.
Okay, that's interesting stuff. And if we go back to that moment where you felt that pressure with the cameras and all the people watching, right? What was happening internally that no one could see? What do you think?
Well, my heart was definitely racing.
Yeah.
I was becoming very dry in my mouth.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to think clearly. And of course, now we realize it's cortisol coming into the frontal cortex. And I couldn't think clearly. I didn't really have the ability to function. So with that state now being in what we call beta brainwave state, with cortisol, with adrenaline rushing, you're now literally being told to get out of there, fight, flight, and freeze, or become aggressive,
Okay.
or freeze and don't move. So all the wrong things required not to perform.
Okay, and so in that moment you were probably in, let's say, freeze state.
Definitely.
And then you went on to fight or flight mode, I think.
Well, yeah, you're in fight, flight, and freeze mode because of the way that the brain's dealing with the situation. And so I actually implemented something called catharsis, state change.
Okay.
I went to the toilet, literally, and I was furious. And I let rip. I got a little bit angry. I got a little bit frustrated.
Okay.
I was changing my state and saying, what the heck's going on here? Not realizing I'm changing the chemicals in my brain, changing my physiology, changing my body language. And all of a sudden, I started to feel different. And I've gone from this afraid type feeling to more, right, come on.
Okay,
let's go.
More confident.
A little bit more confident and just frustrated with the way I'd performed the previous two frames.
Okay.
You know, this is not you. You're showing yourself to be, you know, looking like an idiot. And that's another thing, you know, when you're on television, it's that embarrassment. You feel embarrassed.
True, yeah.
Or as you say in Flemish, beschaamd a little bit. We can speak a little bit of Flemish as well. A little bit of embarrassment. And there's no worse feeling when you want that floor to open up and swallow you and you don't want to be there anymore.
Okay.
So I managed to get out of that state, not understanding how I'd done it, just pure absolute frustration.
Okay, so yeah, that's a cool under pressure moment because you have done a lot of great things in your career, had a lot of big moments, right? We'll talk later about the things you are doing right now. But so do you think letting those emotions go was the best option in that moment? Like just raging and just letting it all out to then change it?
Yeah, I think it was state change.
Okay.
It was changing the chemicals. You've got to be careful not to get too angry and frustrated because you can go into the opposite mode then, an opposite state that's not going to help even further. So it was a case of letting some frustration out. And I'd already learned previously about breathing exercises.
Okay.
So I actually did a few breathing exercises after.
Okay.
Because my heart was racing even more now.
All right.
And I knew I had to calm down somehow. And breathing exercises are a really good way to do that.
That's interesting. So before you went back out, you were 3-0 behind, I think?
Yeah.
0-3?
Yeah, I got to 2-0, 3-0.
3-0, yeah.
Then the frustration.
Okay.
And I did what's called a 1-4-2 ratio breathing exercise.
Okay, this is interesting.
Which is basically, if you think about 1-4-2 ratio, for example, it might be breathing in for 3, times by 4, holding for 12. Breathing out 4 times by 2, 6. So it's a 3-12-6 routine.
3-12-6.
Which now helps to oxygenate, but also helps to slow down the brain a little bit, back down towards alpha, where the brain now can communicate with the body. And also removing some cortisol from the frontal cortex, which now allows you to think a little bit more clearly.
Okay. So it's interesting. It's like a full circle moment. So basically everything you are doing now and everything you know about the brain and how it all works basically leads back to that moment where it all started, where you were intrigued by that moment that you were, I have to figure this out.
Sure. I'd been in similar situations like that before. But nothing like that. That was really the one that said, you know, that really it triggered my interest in what is happening here. Why is it happening? I don't want it ever to happen again at that level. And you can never guarantee that, but there's certain things you can start to do to help the brain to give a different meaning subconsciously to different situations.
Okay, we can talk about the routine later as well, but basically that was a big important moment within your career, because then you went back out and you won. You basically comebacked, right? Amazingly,
I went back out and I managed to win the final 5-4.
That's awesome.
We only ever talk about things that we do successfully, by the way. Of course, I won 5-4. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking about it.
But that's what I mean. That was a big moment. That's what set up everything later, like a domino effect.
Well, I mean, even think about this. I did an interview after the final because I'd won.
Okay.
And I did an interview about what I was doing the next few days. And I was going from Sint-Hertogenbosch down to Antwerp to do some coaching at the match room in Antwerp. This was in the centre of Antwerp city. And the owner of that club was from Hits, near Roeselare in Belgium. And he was the owner of the club. And he'd heard that I was going to one of his clubs to do some coaching the day after. And he came to Antwerp to introduce himself. And he said, I'd like to offer you a contract. I'm only early 20s by then, age-wise. And he said, how would you like to have a nice salary, a nice car, and even I have a house available for you to go and live in.
Awesome.
For 12 months, and we'll give it a try, 1989. And I said, well, where's the house? And he said, it's in a little place called Bruges. Well, I had no idea.
Nice.
I said, where's Bruges? He said, well, if you like, later this afternoon, we can drive over there and have a look and check it out.
It was in Centrum Bruges?
Yeah, it was in St. Gilles area. Okay. It was called West Hestelof, a little house in central Bruges.
All right.
Came here for the first time. Of course, this place grabs you. It's such a beautiful city.
Very.
And even at that young age, I could really appreciate this place.
Nice.
And that's why I came to Bruges. So the impact of that match was, instrumental in so many different things, like getting into neuroscience and understanding the brain, going to Bruges, meeting my wife. We have 3 children, 3 girls.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome to hear. Awesome. And because you, in that moment, right, in that under pressure moment, you let out those frustrations, which was good. But I also talk a lot with my students, with my traders, like there's a misconception about we cannot feel emotions, right? And we cannot feel them. We cannot let them impact ourselves. But I always say we can feel those emotions because we are humans. We are not robots, right? But we cannot let them infect us, like they affect us, right?
Sure.
So what do you think about emotions, maybe for professional athletes as well, but everyone in business? What do you do with those emotions? How do you let them go in a proper way?
Well, it's a very good question. And, you can't turn these emotions off. No, this is your brain responding to certain things. It's how you deal with them. And I think using something called what I call a pre-mortem, right, which is a scenario whereby you look at different things that might happen, and when they happen, you have a plan in place. This happens, this is what we implement. If this is emotions firing, this is how we deal with it. And so you've almost got to predict that it's going to happen, be ready for when it happens. Also, just realize that it's normal.
Okay.
We're humans.
Yeah.
We're going to feel emotions.
Yeah.
And sometimes these emotions don't help, especially in some things that you're doing, like trading. You've got to be very clear. You've got to have good strategy. You've got to have good systems in place, ready to deal with moves in the market, etc., and all of these different kinds of things. Yeah. Not getting too excited about earning a lot of money and making the wrong decision.
True.
Being disciplined. I think self-discipline is such a big thing.
True.
So the emotional side of human beings it's a fact. We feel in terms of physical, we feel these emotions based on how we talk to ourselves. That's also a very, very important thing.
Very.
The way we deal with things, the way we move even changes the way we feel. So body language, if you think about that word emotion, energy, in motion. So the way we move is creating our emotional state as well. Our self-expectancy, expecting ourselves to do certain things, creates emotions as well. So you've got to be careful in terms of when these emotions fire, that they don't trip you up and cause you to make poor decisions. I think that's very important. Okay. You've got to be ready for them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, I think, how you get ready for them is having systems in place. I talk about a trading routine, to have a routine basically before you start trading. And that's also, you help me with this as well, because Chris, you have a method which you invented, let's say. But before we go to that method, I want to talk about that. But firstly, we have to go back to the storyline. So you were a professional snooker player, but then you started to coach people. So you dove into all of that science stuff, how the brain works, how to get the optimal performance. And then you started to learn other people. So now you have worked with great people. So my next question is, which are the biggest people you have worked with right now?
Yeah.
And how have you helped them?
A great question. And I was lucky when I was 16, I was being coached myself by a guy called Frank Callan. And he's known as the guru.
Like the OG.
Then. The big boss of coaching back then.
Okay.
And he was the coach of the 1980s multiple world champion Steve Davis. And also the multiple world champion in the 90s, Stephen Hendry. And I learned all of the technical things from Frank.
Okay.
But then I went into, of course, the psychological side. And I think without that knowledge and information, it's very difficult to help players perform at their best in those big moments. And so one of my first clients was in snooker, professional snooker, was late 90s, was Jimmy White, the Whirlwind. We had 2 seasons with him. And I was sort of learning my trade a little bit there.
Yeah.
And then I went on to coach a guy called Peter Ebden. And in 2002, Peter had set his goals previously, the previous 2 or 3 years, and his goal was to become world champion.
Okay.
And his dream was, in that final, he would play against the 7 times world champion, Stephen Hendry.
All right.
Right, that was his big dream.
Okay.
And would you believe it, in 2002, we'd been working for 2 years, he was in a different half of the draw to Stephen.
Okay.
And they both won their first match, last 16. They both won their next match, last 8 quarterfinals. They both won their next match, semi-finals. Peter was playing Matthew Stevens, and Stephen Hendry was playing Ronnie O'Sullivan, the Rocket.
Yeah.
And so the Rocket was favourite to beat Stephen. And would you believe it, Stephen beat Ronnie O'Sullivan, Peter Ebden beat Matthew Stevens. It's the final.
Right.
Now, just imagine this.
His dream came true.
His dream, his biggest goal of his life. It's now the first to get to 18 points. 18 frames.
Okay.
And it's 17-17.
Damn.
One frame.
Talk about under pressure.
Right. You're talking about being under pressure, right?
Yeah.
This is the moment. This is this one frame now that can change his life. Because if you become world champion, not only do you get a lot of attention, a lot of side things that happen, you earn a lot of money as well.
Yeah.
So he was able to go out in that frame, and we'd been doing a lot of this neural rewiring, which we're going to talk about, training the subconscious to deal with things in a more optimum way. And he managed to get over the line, and he played fantastically well in the final frame when he had to, just when he needed to, against one of his heroes at the time.
Damn.
And he managed to follow through. So Peter Ebden was a great client. And then I've gone on to work with multiple world champions, Sean Murphy, and Mark Selby.
Yeah.
And something happened back in 2021 that's never happened before.
True.
There was 2 finalists, Sean Murphy and Mark Selby, and I was the coach for both players.
That's crazy.
So can you imagine? I'm actually in one changing room coaching one player in the final of the World Championship, Professional World Championship, and now I'm in the other changing room, literally with a stopwatch, checking to make sure that I'm spending about the equal amount of time in both changing rooms.
Damn.
So I became the only player in history to coach both players in the same world final, which is nice.
That's an achievement.
It was very difficult and it was very emotional because you know for a fact you're going to get a winner, but you're definitely going to get a loser as well. And it's difficult to deal with that.
Yeah.
So in the snooker world, I've sort of coached Stephen Hendry for 6 years as well, multiple world champion. Neil Robertson, Mark Allen, many top players.
Yep.
And then something happened, interestingly, back in Dubai in 2015. I was doing a corporate seminar for the First Group in Dubai.
For MasterCard, right?
This was a different company.
Okay.
This was it was a company that take on hotels. They build hotels and they do a deal with an organisation to run that business, if you like. And I was doing a seminar for their executives. But what was happening in the evening was they were going to the golf and they invited me to go to this professional golf tournament in Dubai. And I was sat next to an Australian guy who just happened to be the manager of one of the professional players. And we got chatting, and he asked what I did. I explained a little bit about neuro rewiring and subconscious and the neuroplasticity work. And he was very interested. And he said, I have a client who's struggling a little bit mentally, who's got amazing ability, but just can't get over the line. He can't win. Is there any way you could help him, do you think? And I said, well, I'm doing it in snooker. Snooker's a dead ball sport. It's an individual sport, very similar. Yeah. You've got a lot of time to think. Could you meet him at some point? Not now, but maybe later in the season. I said, yeah, sure. And I got a phone call in June 2015. Met Rafa Cabrera Bello at the Golf National in Paris, and we started to work together.
Nice. First time in golf.
That was my first time working with a professional golf player. I've worked with many golf players since. Lee Westwood, who was former world number one. Yeah. Lots of players, Marcel Siem, Andy Sullivan, Joost Luiten, Thomas Pieters from Belgium. Lot of top players. And one of the interesting things with Rafa was, within 18 months of changing his self-belief, and self-belief is a cluster of neurons in your brain caused by repetition via your 5 senses. Yeah. And you can literally change that belief system. And once somebody starts to genuinely believe it's possible for them to follow through in a situation they're trying to achieve, something called their performance thermostat increases. They stay more controlled and calm in the big moment, and they follow through. And would you believe it? He won the Rolex Series Scottish Open Championship, which is a huge tournament. But we also went to the Ryder Cup together in America. Yeah. We went to the Masters in Augusta together in America. So I've been to all the major tournaments, the Open Championship at St Andrews. And I've had the opportunity in these last sort of years to work with amazing people in amazing situations and help them all. All the players that we've worked with have gone on to win. Nice. Which is pretty unique.
That's direct feedback, right?
It's
an awesome feeling. Like for you as well, I have it in a smaller proportion with my students. Yeah. When I teach them to trade, and then they get good results and they get a payout and they get profitable consistently. Yeah. That's the best result you can ask for and the best feedback as a coach, right?
Absolutely. If you see people that you're working with succeed, there's no better feedback. And that's what we call applied psychology. Because you've used something to get a result. Yeah. In the real world, this is not play stuff. This is real. True. So it's fascinating, like you say, to see some of your clients in the trading world get some real success. Obviously, it's wonderful for them. Yeah. But it's great feedback for you as a coach.
It's it gives so much energy, right? It's
it's
soul fulfilling, let's say. But this is awesome because you kind of explained a pre-portion of the neural rewiring. So we can get more into that. But first, I was thinking about back to the moment with the player 17-17, and then his first time winning a championship against his favorite player, like the dream come true, and out of nowhere you are in that dream, but in reality, right? So then my thought is, what do you say in that moment? So I don't know when there's a break, right? And maybe it's 15-15, or I don't know when it was a break, but what do you say to that person then in that moment?
Well, one of the things we talk about is the things that we cannot control. Okay. What are the things that we cannot control, which we must not focus on? Okay. Like the end result. Okay. What if? Our performance level. Now, some of the players will actually argue with me on this point. Can you control the end result? No, because if you could, guess what? You'd win every time.
Nice.
Can you control your performance level? Some will say yes, but the thing is, when your subconscious trips and it goes into a wrong state and it affects the way your muscles are working, your performance dips. Yeah. So if you could control your performance level, you would perform at your best all the time. But we don't, do we? We don't always perform at our best because we're humans, we're emotional, things happen. So it's about identifying what are the things you can't control and then really getting busy with the process of the 1 or 2 little keys that you've got to keep repeating and focusing on that allows you to perform at your best. So what can you control that allows you to do what you need to do? Identify what they are and be busy reminding your client, which is what I was doing, to make sure that they weren't getting out of that situation where they were focusing on things they can't control. Okay. And that basically causes fear and anxiety
Yeah.
When you're trying to control something you can't control, you're in the wrong state.
Okay.
And that dreaded word fear, F-E-A-R, false evidence appearing real.
Oh.
Sometimes we get afraid of things we don't need to be afraid of.
True.
But we get afraid.
Yeah.
So fascinating to continually remind somebody to keep doing the things that they can control in the best possible way to perform at their best.
Okay, so basically if neural rewiring is basically your self-belief system, because people basically choose what they want to believe, and maybe they don't necessarily know it, but they are choosing themselves what they want to believe,
Well,
right?
and like we said before, a belief system is like a cluster of neurons in your brain. Now, neural rewiring is a process, it's an 8-step process to helping you change your belief system, to help you to change your self-image, how you see yourself, because that's huge. You know, you see yourself in a certain way. And if you see yourself at a certain way, at a certain level, it's very difficult to get yourself past that level, to perform past that level. So neural rewiring basically incorporates something called neuroplasticity, literally rewiring your brain, changing neural pathways in your brain, using all 5 senses. And that's a powerful process to creating a new belief about you being able to now follow through when you need to, in the big moment, when that arises. So that is a very important process.
Okay. Yeah, that's an awesome. And you invented this method, right?
Well, the neural rewiring wording is something that I came up with.
Yeah.
That's what I sort of interpret it as.
Okay.
Neuroplasticity is out there, right? What I've done, I've helped to implement these tools in a certain way, if you like, creating let's say a recipe.
Okay.
So doing things in a certain way, in a certain order.
By habit. I guess.
What you're doing is you're creating habits.
Okay.
So let's look at habits.
Yeah.
What is a habit? It's a cluster of neural connections in the brain. And once you've got enough of those connections through repetition, it starts to become a habit. Just like, for example, learning to drive a car. You know, when you start to learn to drive a car, you're consciously doing certain movements. But after a period of time, you've created a little piece of software in your subconscious that now drives that car.
Yeah.
Because of the repetition you've been doing long enough.
Okay.
You've learned to walk without thinking about walking because you've created a little piece of software through repetition called a habit for walking. You've learned how to cut your food, look at somebody and put your fork straight in your mouth and not miss and hit your cheek like you were doing when you were 2, 3, 4.
True.
You've created a little piece of software for eating food.
Yeah.
And so you're creating these bits of software all the time for things that you're trying to do. Play the piano, for example. How can these guys play the piano at such a level?
Yeah.
There's so much going on there. You can't look at both hands, but they're playing all the right notes. That's a little piece of software in the brain caused by repetition. So habits and beliefs are caused by repetition. Be careful what you're repeating because you can create bad habits as well as good habits, and you can create negative belief systems and positive belief systems based on the information you're putting into your brain.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. That's why I have a lot of conversations with my traders as well, that, you know, traders out there backtest long enough, demo trade long enough, because people think it's not necessary, but you are creating the habits. And I always say, when you are demo trading and paper trading and also backtesting, you are creating the habits, and the better you do it, the more easier it will be to replicate it when you are live trading and when certainly it's real, right? So this neural rewiring stuff it's very intriguing. So it's about basically self-belief system as well. And this is interesting because sometimes I have traders as well. Yeah, trading is something like maybe as well with professional athletes, but you have to work constantly and then get results.
Sure.
Not instantly results. So that's also with business and entrepreneurship, right? So with trading, it's the same thing. You have to work and maybe a couple of years.
Build the foundation.
Yes.
Build the right habits.
Yes, but here is the tricky part. When you are working 2, 3, maybe longer years, and you do not get results, then they start to believe subconsciously. Yeah. They start to believe that it's maybe not possible, and there's a voice that gets going like, is this even possible? Will this ever work out? So this reminds me of the player you have. I don't know if you can talk about it, but Lazowski, Jack Lazowski.
Yeah, sure.
And he was also in the process, but never getting the result.
15 years a professional and never having won.
Okay, so how... This is the perfect example. So how did he change? How did he go from 15 years of never getting, just barely to the finishing line, like just not enough, to then win the biggest championship there is?
Sure. I think there's a few elements to certainly Jack Lazowski's personal story. Changing his belief system is major.
Yeah.
We also helped him with some things on table.
Okay.
To help him be more consistent in the way he was striking the ball and the way he was aiming the ball, because we're doing those two things with parts of our brain, cerebellum, visual cortex, and we're looking to coordinate those two things. Okay. But what you've just said there is very interesting, because you allow these traders to have a dummy sort of account, if you like, and they are doing something very important. It's something we call in sport role play.
Okay.
So they're role-playing scenarios. Yeah. Let me just very quickly just give you the power of that, what that can do. I'm working with a guy called Sean Murphy. He's 2013. His major goal is to make a 147 break, the highest possible break, live on television. He's never managed to do it. He gets too nervous as that line starts to approach and he gets close. He starts shaking, can't concentrate, and he misses the shots.
Maybe so, he's thinking about the money, maybe.
He's thinking about what if,
the end result,
money, £147,000 if he does it. Yeah. All these things are flying around. But there's a performance thermostat called the psycho-cybernetic mechanism, a PCM. And we've got to get that thermostat set higher so that when those things start to happen in real, the brain doesn't trip out and you get too uncomfortable. Okay. And how can we do that? We can create subconscious memory files of doing something in practice before we attempt to really do it.
Okay.
So what we did was, for the 147 scenario in the club in Manchester, I said to Sean, right, there's 3 reds and the colours, and we're going to put 3 reds with 3 blacks and all the colours and clear the table. And he said, Chris, it's 15 reds. You're giving me 3 reds here. I said, but there's something very important, Sean.
Okay.
The subconscious part of your brain does not know the difference between this and doing it for real. It takes it on board as fact. And he said to me, how do you know that that happens? How do you know that the subconscious doesn't know the difference? And I said, well, have you ever been to watch a horror movie at a cinema? Yeah. And you sit down at this horror movie, and you know it's a white plastic screen, and you know it's just a little bit of light flashed up onto the screen. I said, why is it after 15 minutes, you're literally sat behind your hands, looking through your fingers at this film, and you're literally frightened to death? Yeah. Because your subconscious is turning that into real, and you can't switch that off. And you literally feel really uncomfortable. Yeah. Or you're lying in bed, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, you've just had a nightmare, you're sweating and shaking. Now, the nightmare's not really happening, but for you, it feels like it's real.
Yeah, it's perceiving it as real.
Right,
yeah,
so can we train the brain to get used to these things? And yes, he pots the first red in this scenario, Sean Murphy, and I shout 97, as if we're on a 147, and the subconscious takes it as fact.
Nice.
He pots the black, 104, and I'm clapping like he's made a century break. And I'm also clapping to make all the other tables take note. Oh. All the other guys stopped and they're watching now. Hey, he's on a 147.
Okay.
Right? And he misses the next easy red. And he said, Chris, look at my hands.
Oh, shit.
He said, my hands are shaking. He said, it's ridiculous. He said, it's practice, but my body's responding like it's really happening. So we did the routine again. He missed. We did the routine again. He missed. And on the 9th attempt, videoing it, he made the 147, high five, big cuddle, as if it's really happening. Nice. Right? But what have we done there? We've created a memory file in his subconscious brain of actually doing the 147. So if it ever happens in the future, his brain will recognize that scenario more, stay within his comfort zone, not surpass his thermostat, and stay in a state that gives him more chance to follow through. Okay. And literally, he did that routine once every day. He watched the videos as well. And a few months later, go on YouTube, 2014, Sean Murphy, 147. He made a maximum 147.
Nice.
And he said, I felt a little bit nervous, but nowhere near like normal. I was able to stay clear. A few weeks later, he made a second 147 live on TV.
Okay.
Right? And a few months later, became the only player in history so far to make 3 147s live on TV in the same calendar year.
Wow.
So that is just an example of role play scenarios,
Awesome.
creating memory files of doing something before you do it, and then being able to actually do it in real when these situations come up. So you think about using that kind of stuff for trading and going through these scenarios of trading in practice.
Yeah.
It's a big, big process.
Role play as well. And like you say, repetition, right? So his brain subconsciously, it was like, I recognize this scenario.
His amygdala now,
Yeah.
basically this is how your amygdala works.
Yeah.
It looks at something, it fires the information back in, it compares it to previous memory files. If it recognizes it, you can feel more at ease. If it doesn't recognize it, fight, flight, and freeze chemicals fire, and now you're in the wrong state. So you're giving your brain the information so the amygdala can actually deal with it and recognize it, allowing you to stay more in a better state.
That's a big accomplishment as coach as well, right? So he wasn't able to do that shot, the 147, one of the most difficult things to do in snooker.
Yeah.
And then he did it 3 times, the first player to become...
In a calendar year.
Wow, crazy.
And he's made many more since.
So that's proof, basically. So that's why under pressure as well, this is applicable or applicable.
Applicable, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the right term, but...
Heel mooi Engels. Very nice English, Rousseau. Applicable.
Ik praat veel te weinig Engels, maar goed. Mahoza.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, it's adaptable for each and every industry.
Absolutely.
For professional players, traders.
Sales,
yeah.
Coaches. Family.
Coaches, so don't you think it's a shame? Maybe it's not a shame, but I feel like not many people are busy with this stuff, right? They're just a feather in the wind, I guess.
Sure.
Maybe it's a little bit rude that I say this, but
yeah,
it's very important. Whatever you are doing, business, trading, professional coaching, whatever it is, you have to be more aware of this kind of stuff.
Be more aware and do something about it. Don't just go with the flow.
Yeah.
You know what we say about go with the flow? Only dead fish go with the flow, right? Put your oar in the water and go in the direction you want to go in, right? Don't just go with the flow.
Yeah.
Because then, you know, where the heck are you going to end up?
Become the captain of your own ship, which is your mind, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's awesome.
There's another saying, time flies, but you're the captain. You're the pilot.
Yeah.
And you can deal with it. You can go in the direction you want to go in.
Okay.
Don't go with the flow. Choose your route.
Okay, but that's awesome stuff, Chris. I love this. This is awesome input as well. I think a lot of people can relate with this stuff. So neural rewiring, crazy. But I also have a question about people that fail under pressure because do they lack discipline or because their nervous system is dysregulated?
Sure. I mean, there's many reasons why people would fail. And you've got to be careful with the word fail.
Okay.
You know, learning experience is better. You know, they're not really failing, they're learning.
True.
You know?
True.
As we say, you know, failure is the fertilizer of success.
Yeah.
You've got to have failure to succeed.
Of course.
You know, success lives on the far side of failure. You've got to get through some failure to learn the lessons of how to succeed. So don't think failure's a person or an individual.
Yeah.
It's just an experience. It's a thing that happens. But learn from the things of failure. You know, there's a saying that what's insanity? Doing the same things over and over, expecting different results. And you said there that, you know, some people trade for 2 or 3 years. Well, no, what's not working? What are the things you can do something about?
True.
Maybe you've got to fine-tune your approach.
True.
Maybe you've got to change your strategy a little bit and look at all the things that have gone wrong maybe and learn from those things and implement something more effective.
Yeah.
I think that's a key thing. So failure...
That's interesting.
Most people look at failure as negative. It's not. But it's necessary.
There's an important thing you say. It's necessary, of course, but... Like you say, I know a lot of traders, and I have had this period myself, where you keep making the same mistake over and over again without changing it, right?
Sure.
But these people don't even know they're making the same mistake constantly.
So they're unconsciously incompetent.
Okay.
They don't know, and they don't know that they don't know, right? So they keep making the mistake. So someone like you as a coach, you could be the person that says, hold on a minute, you keep doing this and making the same mistake over and over, and you're not really aware of it. You've got to make them now consciously incompetent. In other words, they now know what's wrong and what they're doing in an ineffective way.
True.
And you can help them to change that strategy to get on a better track.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I have a trader as well, but you need to know this as a coach, right? So I was coaching a trader already for 2 years, and he had a payout and everything, but it wasn't that consistently, not enough. So I started asking some questions, right? And dig deeper.
Yeah.
And then for the first time after 2 years, I got to know that he had mistaken patience by being afraid of execution. So he was disguising it, right? So he was convincing himself he was patient to wait for the perfect setup.
Right.
But he basically was too afraid to execute.
Sure. Right, okay. Waiting for the perfect setup. Is there a perfect setup? Is anything perfect? Sometimes you've got to be prepared to do things and learn from them and fine tune.
Yeah.
So, it's an interesting thing that you've just talked about there. But I think as a coach, if you can really identify when people are doing things in an ineffective way and bring in better tools and methodologies, then you're a really good coach.
How do you dig deeper into your players to know what is wrong? Let's say basically there's nothing wrong, but there is something that's holding them back, mostly emotional.
Sure.
How do you dig that deep?
Well, there's lots of things, people's childhood, when they were very young, the way they've been treated by their parents, by teachers, by siblings, by friends, how they're talked to. Because when you're young, you see, your conscious brain isn't really developed. You're not able to decipher between what you want to use and what you don't want to use. So your subconscious brain is wide open when you're a kid, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and everything's going in and everything's being stored. And you can start to generate a lot of limiting beliefs about yourself, because a lot of people tell you that you're no good and you'll never do it. And we hear this all the time.
True.
So that's an interesting part of the process of getting to a point where you can start to believe more in what you're doing, that it's possible for you. But this neural rewiring process and what you've just said there is one of the things that we do is we identify what are people's automatic negative thoughts. Now, there's an interesting word I just said there, was automatic.
Yeah.
Most of our thoughts become automatic through repetition.
Okay.
Because when we think a thought, neurons come together and they create something called a synapse gap. And with repetition of thinking that thought over and over and over, these neurons get closer and closer, the synapse gap gets smaller and tighter, and the brain starts to use those, the tightest ones, as the automatics.
Okay.
So if somebody's thinking negatively about something all the time or worrying about something all the time, then they become the negative or automatic thoughts.
Okay.
And the interesting thing is, Rousseau, that thoughts create chemicals to make you feel that way. So if you're on an automatic negative thought process, you're not going to feel great. You've got to change those thoughts so that the emotions then start to become more positive. And it's emotion that has the biggest impact on performance. So you've got to get your thoughts good. And neural rewiring can help to do that job.
Yeah, that's awesome, because I was just going to ask, how do you change that? But basically by neural rewiring, because I have a perfect example as well. I had a call this morning with a student of mine, and he was basically, he's very consistent and he's very cool with his emotions. Yeah. But for some reason, he keeps being, how do I say this? When he has a loss, right? He has a loss, so minus 1%. It's nothing bad. But whenever he has that stop loss, he feels shit.
Right. Loser. I'm a loser.
Yeah, only by one loss.
Wow.
So how do you then change that? Because basically he's created the habit of feeling bad when he has a loss. And then I say, you are too much focused on result-based instead of process.
Absolutely.
You have to switch that around. You have to be...
You've hit something on the head there. You're very results-oriented. And, losing or having a loss, it's not the end of the world. If you've got a strategy in place, you've got to understand that things do go a little bit like this. Life is up and down.
True.
You've got to deal with the downs just as much as you've got to celebrate and enjoy the ups. Do these people actually celebrate when they do something good? Or is it just, that's what I'm expected to do?
Yeah.
Which is what a lot of my clients do.
Okay.
They'll win a tournament and they'll say, well, and that's my job. That's what I'm expected to do.
Okay.
I said, yeah, but if you really enjoy it and celebrate it, there's more chance your subconscious brain wants more of it, and it will help you to get more of it.
That's interesting.
Just understand. I think you've got to prepare people for these things.
Yeah.
You're going to lose some trades.
True.
It's going to happen.
True.
You're going to lose some matches. It's going to happen. It's probabilities. It's odds. It's ups and downs. You're not going to win everything. It's going to be, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So get ready for it, but have systems in place to deal with it.
Yeah.
Pre-mortem. When this happens, and it will happen, this is how we deal with it. And we crack on and we learn.
Okay.
I think getting people prepared for those disappointments, if you like.
Yeah. I do that but in trading, I make them compile data. It's all about data. And the stronger your data is, the more confident you are, because if you know exactly what is my pain threshold, how much losses does my strategy have, and it's normal, then why should you worry about 1 loss or 2 losses or 5 losses? Sure. Because that's normal, because there isn't a formula, a math formula on probability.
Sure.
It's
absolutely,
it's probability. So
it's totally probability. Yeah. And people say, they talk about luck in snooker. Is it lucky? Is it, well, a ball hits a ball and something happens and someone says, oh, you're so lucky. Well, something caused it to happen. Yeah. And it's the probability, it's the outcome of what you just caused to happen. It's not really luck. It's just a probability playing out, but it's perceived as luck or bad luck.
Yeah. And you said that was a cool topic. You said celebrate the wins, right?
Sure.
But I find it kind of dangerous a little bit in trading, because if you get too excited about a win, maybe you get also more afraid or for losses. Well, you get more emotional for losses as well.
I think if you're going to, I agree with that. And I think if you celebrate your wins, you go back to your strategy.
Okay.
Right? You've still got a strategy. And part of that strategy is celebrate the win.
Yeah.
But then once you've celebrated the win, we go back to the strategy. We don't get too excited. Okay. We don't get greedy. This is a big one, isn't it? We don't get greedy.
Very big.
If you get greedy, you're in trouble because you will make wrong decisions.
Okay.
So you can celebrate it, but you've got to have a very clear strategy in place to go back to implement immediately. That's key.
Yeah, when you become too cocky.
Too arrogant. Oh, I'm the man. I've just made so much money, and I'm going to do it again next week. And guess what happens usually? It's the opposite.
I've had that as well when I was 20 years old and I was trading for the hedge fund. First time with $500,000 and everything. Right. And I was the best trader on the trading floor and I was doing so good. And I got a little bit cocky, a little bit too much ego, and I got hit in the face pretty bad after that.
And and that lesson will probably serve you now, because guess what? The chances of you making that mistake again, because it was so painful. Okay. And that's the thing, pain and pleasure. It was so painful that the memories there that will probably stop you doing that again.
Yeah, true.
And did you say you were 20?
Yeah.
No, you're a young man, by the way.
Thank you.
You're doing very, very well.
Thank you.
You're quite advanced mentally as a young guy as well.
Yeah.
So you're doing fantastically well.
Thank you, Chris.
But trading at 20. It doesn't surprise me you got a little bit arrogant and that. When we're young, we get a little bit cocky and a bit, whatever, and we go for it and we'll have a pincher and whatever,
True. I've learned a lot by coaching as well.
Yeah.
Because in the beginning, I remember the first student of my business, he asked me 2 years prior or 3 years prior when I started this coaching business, I guess. Yeah. And he asked me and I was like, no.
Really?
I was just trading on my own. I was just making good money and everything. So I was just like, don't bother me, right?
Sure.
But then I've learned and I matured a little bit, and then I was like, making money on itself, it's nice. We need money. It's a tool. Yeah. But it didn't fulfill my soul, right? It wasn't passion.
Sure.
So I needed something more. But
there's a thing about money.
Okay.
People talk about, does money make you happy? Well, it can, of course. It can make you happy. But what it does do, it allows you to arrive at your problems in style. Because guess what? As much money as you're going to earn, you're still going to have life problems, right? Now, that never goes away. The grass is always greener on the other side of the fence, but the grass still needs cutting on the other side of the fence as well.
Yes.
So it might appear to be greener, but you still got to work it. Yeah. So
beautiful.
You've got to be careful how you look at things.
It's a discussion, but of course you need money, right? It's a money-driven economy, and
here's the deal: if you don't have enough money, guess what? You're worried.
Yep.
And if you're worried, you're not enjoying life.
No.
So you need to have enough at least.
Yeah. Sure. Okay, that's awesome. Thank you. But Chris, what happens when someone keeps avoiding pressure instead of focusing on it or training on it?
It's difficult to avoid pressure, or it's difficult to avoid, let's use a different terminology, it's difficult to avoid those negative emotional states because they keep happening, right? The question is, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to deal with them? And more importantly for me is, how can you avoid them from happening at that level less in the future? So that's key for me. Training your brain to deal with these things in a better way, and also consciously making decisions to deal with them better as well. That's key.
Yeah.
But you can try to avoid these things.
Yes.
You can't. It's human nature.
You got to face them head on, basically.
We always say, do the thing you fear, and the fear will disappear. Because if you face it head on, it doesn't become a fear anymore.
Okay.
The number of times you've been afraid of something, and when you actually follow through and face it, you think, well, actually, I didn't really need to be afraid there. No. So
True.
You've got to face things full on, absolutely.
True, and that's the last thing to say about that topic. I feel like a lot of people run away from their, I wouldn't say fears, but from the pressure, from themselves, from the confrontation. Yeah. So this is very big in trading as well. I always say trading is the most biggest and truest mirror there is to look in. Right?
Yeah, you see your self-image.
If you want to be successful in trading, then you have to face those mistakes. You have to face those less better things about your personality, because for one person it can be too greedy, for the other person it can be too afraid. Yeah. Doesn't matter. But you have to face them head on, and you have to train on it and change them to become the best version of yourself.
I think you're right. I think you've got to identify what are your weaknesses.
Yeah.
What are you not implementing that you need to implement to be a successful trader? And there might come a point in the future that you think, am I really enjoying this?
Yeah.
Do I want to be a trader?
Okay.
Because not everybody can be a trader.
No.
Not everybody can be a professional football player. Not everybody can be a professional tennis player.
No.
You can try, but there comes a point maybe in the future that you realize it's not really for me or whatever. But if you're going to continue to do that, you've got to be able to adjust and adapt.
Okay.
For sure.
Awesome. Yeah, there's a very small percentage of people that become a professional snooker player. Absolutely. Or a professional NBA player.
There's 128 professional snooker players in the world.
128 million?
128 players.
Oh, okay.
Are professional.
Oh, yeah, okay. You mean, yeah,
and there's
right.
millions of snooker players.
True.
But only 128 of them are actually professional players.
That's not a lot.
It's a very small amount of people.
That's not a lot. That's like the NBA 500, I think, in the NBA.
You look at NFL, you look at baseball, you look at basketball, you look at football, tennis, golf. It's, compared to how many people play.
Trading as well.
It's a very small percentage of very successful people at that.
But that makes it more endeavor. That makes it more interesting to have you on here and to have these advices, because you basically help those small percentages become even better. And yeah.
Sure. And and one of my things is I never really approach anybody in terms of me working with them.
Yeah.
In my opinion is, if I'm doing a good job, then they're going to want to work with me. True. And that's what usually happens. When you get a lot of success, a lot of other people see it.
Yeah.
And they start to wonder, what are they doing? Are they doing something different than I'm doing that actually maybe I could implement to become a better version of me? And I think that's what happens. So, yeah, helping these elite sorts of people become even better, it's a fascinating space to be in.
Very awesome. Okay, Chris, one last question. To go back to that moment where you were under pressure, right?
Yeah.
So if you could go back to that moment with everything you know now,
yes,
what would you tell yourself?
What would I do as well?
Yeah.
Do you know one of the things I'd do? I'd practice with a few cameras around.
Okay.
I'd put some cameras in the room. I'd visualize.
Yeah.
I visualize being in a final with a live audience, live on television. I'd make some audio files talking about me being in that final, because the interesting thing with the brain is when you listen to words about things, your brain's making images of them. Your subconscious brain only works on images.
Yeah.
So if I said to you, Porsche, car, Porsche, your brain sees this. I don't know what your brain sees, but I see a 911, a nice two-seater sports car.
I was thinking the same.
3.6, flat six, air-cooled engine, noisy.
Which color did you see then?
Red.
Me too.
Did you see red? Yeah. So your brain comes up with this.
Yeah, okay.
So knowing what I know now, I would have prepared myself better.
Okay.
I would have created more memory files.
Okay.
I'd have increased my performance thermostat. I'd have basically tricked my subconscious brain into dealing with that situation when it happens in the future much more neutrally. so that I wouldn't get too nervous and anxious, and then I would be in a better state to start off the match from the very start. So I would say it's more about preparation. But I also think that what I did was very good, because when you look at people like Tiger Woods, he uses something called a Tiger 10, or Djokovic at tennis. You'll see him sit down with his tennis towel over his face, and his head's moving like this. And what he's doing, he's changing his state. He's gone from this, oh my goodness, to come on type of thing. And the way you move and the way you talk to yourself has a huge impact on how you feel. So they're the kind of things.
Okay, so this is applicable for everything. Business, sales, trading. So
absolutely everything.
These are some very good takeaways.
Yeah, it's generic.
Okay, so you would do better preparation, and then one last thing, what would you tell yourself?
What do you mean?
If you would go back to that moment, in that under pressure moment, and you're in the final and you're 3-0 behind, and there's cameras everywhere, and this is your moment. If you would be next to that Chris Henry version of yourself, what would you tell him right now?
First of all, I'd say, well, listen, you're in the wrong state, mate. You look frightened to death. You look grey. The blood's drained from your face. Get out of here. Go and do some breathing exercises. Let rip for 10 seconds, which is what I tell my players. Change your state and get back to focusing on the process of the things that you can implement now that allow you to get the best result. That's the key thing. Don't think about the end result. Don't think about all these millions of people watching you. Don't think about being embarrassed and you can't perform.
True.
It's not easy to do that, by the way. You get drawn to it.
It's training.
It is. Get back to the things you can control. And I think in terms of trading, it's your strategy, isn't it?
True.
Having this clear strategy in place and nailing those little things that help you get better and better trades.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, Chris. So, thank you so much for having you on Under Pressure episode. Where can people find you? We will put your details as well in the description of this video, but where can people find you?
Well, there's a couple of places at the moment. There's Chris Henry Sports, there's chrishenry.be, but there's a new website coming, chrishenry.co.uk. And also you can find us on YouTube, at Chris Henry Coaching, and all of those places.
Okay, everything will be listed down below. So thank you very much, Chris.
It's been a pleasure
for having you. And maybe one last thing to the audiences, maybe in West Flemish.
Ja, West Vlaams.
Ja.
Wat moet ik nu zeggen, een beetje in West Vlaams? Het is een plezier babbelen over zo'n topic van psycholoog. En ik geloof dat mensen kan komen op een hele hogere niveau als ze denkt momenteel.
Nice. He has a fucking Flemish accent as well. It's not normal Dutch.
Mahoza, dat is niet waar, hè?
All right.
Bedankt, hè.
Chris, thank you very much. This has been Under Pressure. My name is Russo van Hoorn. Thank you for watching.